Well, my family are Trinidadians, in actual fact, but my mum was Grenadian, and got an elder sister and brother. When she was having me, she went back to Grenada. She'd split from my father, didn't really know him. But then 6 years in Grenada, then moved to Trinidad for 3 years. My mum was doing she was a single parent, so she was doing lots of different jobs, and she started to work on a ship. And she'd been to England, I think, on the ship, and met up with my uncle, and had a discussion with him, and felt that there's a better opportunity for us to be in England. So she sent my brother and myself first. My brother was 13, I was 9. And she promised us faithfully she'd join us with my sister after 2 years. But she sold it to us as a bit of an adventure. I mean, I can't even remember the crossing to Trinidad. I think we went on a boat. So I'd never been on a plane. My brother had, because he'd lived a short while in Antigua. So it's very exciting for us. I mean, she really, well, you can imagine, 9 years old, I'm thinking, crikey, I'll leaving my mum. But she really did sell it to us as an adventure. And well, I was looking forward to it, the journey on the plane, and very exciting. We arrived in Heathrow in April '62, and my first impression was, my God, it's cold. It's really cold. So that was, all that story about England is the streets are paved with gold. That was a lie. And we made our way to Tilbury, where my uncle and aunt lived. And the funny thing was, my uncle met us at Heathrow, got on the train to go to Tilbury. He had a little bag with him, pulled out something out of the bag in like a white tea cloth, and he opened it, and we saw this green apple. Well, we'd never seen a green apple, Granny Smith. All the apples in the Caribbean came from America. They were those red, powdery, tasteless apples.
Yeah.
And as he's cutting it for us to have a taste, my brother leaned across to me and he went, "Don't eat it, it'll give you a bellyache." we thought, you can't eat it, it's green. So that was the first impression. Apart from the cold, that was my first impression of landing in England. I'd never seen football. I'd heard about it because in Trinidad, I used to go past the Savannah on a regular basis. It was cricket and hockey. Big Indian community in Trinidad. So hockey was a big sport along with the national sport cricket. So I'd never seen football. Came to England, and I've been very fortunate with the way things panned out for me. The boys I fell in with at the school in Tilbury were the football players. Right. And the lad who became one of my best friends in that short time I was there, he introduced me to football. And that's how I started playing. Right. So I was very fortunate. There was a chess club as well, I think, but I didn't get into that. But
yeah. There's still time.
Most players will remember like the first coach or teacher to introduce you to football in an organised way. And the teacher was Miss Fitzgerald. He was the geography teacher. Everybody back in those days, it was all, one teacher did about 4 subjects, and he ran the football team. So I asked my friend said, "Come and ask him for a trial." Had a trial, no boots, nothing at all, useless. And he said to me, "Batson," at the end of the trial, he said, "Where do you come from again, Batson?" I went, "Well, born in Grenada, but came here from Trinidad." He said, "That's in the Caribbean, isn't it?" I said, "Well, yes, sir." He said, "Well, maybe cricket's your game." And I think he must have seen me, my bottom lip starting to tremble, and I was on the verge of tears. And he said, "I'll come back next week then." And we had a big daisy field where we used to live. And I think I spent every day, morning, after school, every evening playing football. And went back for the second trial. I think I nabbed a pair of boots. And that is how I started.
Was it a natural talent or something you had to work hard at?
I must have had a bit of talent because I took to it really well. I really enjoyed it, and I couldn't stop playing. I mean, I remember the pure joy of playing. And then I think I played in a school team, and then out of the blue, I got selected for trials for the Thurrock Boys. This is a junior school, and I played in Thurrock Boys, and we got through to a final. Didn't win it, but we came runners up. My aunt came to see me, but she couldn't see me because it was just thick fog. I could hear her clapping because she had leather gloves on. I couldn't see her, but I could hear her clapping and shouting my name. And I remember the thrill of actually going up and getting a little trophy, whatever it was, for runners up. But it was real. And when we finished that, and after all the trials and that, just going home, we'd stop and play football again. So there was a sheer joy, and I just took to it. I think I just took to it.
So how did Arsenal come into this then, Brendan?
Well, when my mum came to England, because my brother and stuff were living with my uncle and aunt, my mum came and then we'd moved, I think, initially to Chadwell, and then we moved to Walthamstow. But in between, I got spotted by a team in Barking, Rippleway Rangers, they were called. I got approached by a team in Walthamstow. They came to see my mum, and I said, "Yeah, I'll join you." So I started to play for Walthamstow. Walthamstow Sunday team. I was selected to play for Waltham Forest, the district side. And it was whilst playing for the district side, I think I was 13, that one of the old great Arsenal players, George Mayle, played in always forget him, smashing guy, really lovely fella. He came up to me after one of the district games and said, "Would you like to come and train twice a week with Arsenal?" So I said, they had to go through the school. Mum got involved. So I was Arsenal to Highbury, Mondays and Thursday. That's where I started to train with Arsenal.
And the manager at the time was Bertie Mee, was it?
Yes. And not only that, a little while later, when I signed schoolboy forms at 14, it's Ken Pryor. I've just had something to do to send him a good luck note because it's 70 years his association, or his 70th anniversary with Arsenal. But he was the assistant secretary with Bob Wall.
Yeah.
Ken. And we became really good friends, particularly when I was at the PFA, in dealing with former players at the club who needed support in some way. Ken would get in touch with me and say, "Look, we're going to help this particular player, but is there anything the PFA can do?" And we used to liaise and get it done. When we won the FA Youth Cup, at the time, there was Brown Hornsby. Davy Price was one that had a very, very, can also say stellar career, and he suddenly just played cup finals and then seemed to drop out of the scene for some reason. I don't know why. Jimmy D. Garris, Terry Burton.
Yeah.
He was almost mentored by Don Howe. He didn't make it as a player. But Jimmy D. Garris was captain, and they got released after we won the FA Youth Cup, which was a surprise. But Don Howe became a bit of a mentor to Terry, and Terry's become a very, very good coach.
Yeah.
Who else was it? A lad who looked as though he's going to have a fantastic career, very much in the mould of Geordie Armstrong, was a lad called Bobby Harding.
Yeah.
Who sadly got a series of injuries. And I think he just, I remember reading a feature about him, the boy they can't break, but he just kept on trying and trying. I mean, he looks nailed on to have a great career, fantastic attitude, really good athlete, good player. So we had a decent set of young lads, but a lot
Paul
of
Davis was there as well, wasn't he?
Paul Davis, he had big Ron. I mean, Ron Davis, his brother, was a mountain of a bloke. Paul was very slender, very skillful. The other lad who, as well, was Ronnie Allen's son, Russell Allen. Very instrumental in, very much like his dad, one of the great players for West Bromwich Albion was Ronnie Allen. And it was his son, I think he left Arsenal, went to Tranmere. Bertie Mee was very much the old style manager. Everybody knows he was a physiotherapist, unheard of, that steps into the manager's shoes. I think he took over from Billy Wright, I think, if my history is right.
He did.
Pardon the pun. And he delegated, and it was Don Howe and Steve Burtonshaw. And the youth team coach at the time I signed was Ernie Wally, who was like a sergeant major type. He was absolutely ruthless. I mean, brutal with young players, but good for us, good for discipline. And then I think as Ray Crawford and Dave Smith joined. But Don Howe was very influential. But Bertie Mee, I think a lot of things I carry today because of Bertie Mee. His motto was, remember where you are, who you are, and who you represent.
Yeah.
And always remember when we got through to the final of the FA Youth Cup, same year Arsenal did a double. He took all the youth team players out to one of the best restaurants in Piccadilly, in Haymarket. I think it was called a Hunting Lodge. And we were all going out, all the coaching staff were there as well, because his philosophy was, some of you hopefully are going to make it. You need to know how to conduct yourself in these type of restaurants.
You made 10 appearances for the first team for Arsenal. Was it kind of happy times at Arsenal?
I've got mixed emotions about it because one of the things I remember was being extremely nervous. I'd come all the way through, and I started to become aware of. I wasn't even aware I was the first black player. I just knew there weren't many of us around, and there's a bit of spotlight on it. Across the road at West Ham was Clyde Best, and like Lady Coker, and I think they had the Charles brothers there. There were 1 or 2 players up and down the country, but there just weren't any. And cut a long story short, I wasn't convincing enough. Right. And Bertie was very good. I told him, one of the things, you get into the first team, I found the reserves extremely, not easy, but I could cope with the reserves. We had big squads. I couldn't bring myself to go back to the reserves on a regular basis. And I think what really did it was Don Howe went to become manager at West Brom, and Bobby Campbell came in as first team coach, and then they went out and signed Jeff Blockley. Yeah,
from Coventry.
And I thought, well, I saw him in training, I saw him and everything. I thought, nah, I've got to get away from here. I don't think I've got a future here. So I made a decision. But he was very good. He spoke to me and said, if you feel strongly about it. I told him how I felt. I think I spoke briefly to Bob Wilson, get some advice from Bob Wilson. I think was a PFA delegate at the time. But I made the decision very emotionally, and Cambridge United were the first thing to come in for me. And I was so pleased somebody wanted me. I just didn't think of anything else, and I just went. Young team who got into the come out of Southern League, got promoted in the first season, I think. We're in the all third division, but we're struggling. Looked nailed on to get relegated, signed me, and the press billed me as the player that would save the club from relegation. And you know the press never lie. Come the end of the season, we were relegated, yeah. So started off not well. I think we were towards the bottom of the 4th division. And speculation about the manager, but the directors got together, gave him a vote of confidence, and then sacked him 2 weeks later.
Oh.
In walks Ron Atkinson, who came from Kettering Town. And he was nothing like a manager, nothing like Bertie and me. Wanted to be involved in a card school, knew all the parties we were going to when we were not supposed to go, knew everything. But a huge, huge ambition. And a few of us realized that this guy was going places, and if we just hung on to his coattails, some of us might have a career. I was very much aware of it, the chanting, but the difference was at Cambridge, you could actually see that you could make them out, you know, and I reacted quite badly. I think it was against Bradford. And the assistant manager was John Doherty at Cambridge. And well, I had an incident. There was actually a National Front rally in Bradford. We were playing Bradford away. There's a National Front rally up there. And the ball gone out for a throw-in, out to us. I was going to get it. And this bloke, I could see them all chanting at me. And this one bloke sort of hurled the ball at me, called me all the names under the sun. I caught the ball. I think for a split second, I was going to throw it back at him because he was coming down the terrace. And all I felt was a hand on my shoulder. My nickname was Batman, and I heard John Dockett, his Scottish brogue, Batman, get on with the game, like, you know. And but you became very much aware of the faces within that small crowd.
So I saw that you captained Cambridge. So happy days there, and you captained the 4th Division Championship in '77. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a fantastic time at Cambridge. I mean. I had my run-ins with Ron, but I say to my kids and my grandkids, remember one motto, if you're going to remember one motto in life, is that a good big one always beats a good little one. Ron had weight advantage in buckets. So even though I wasn't getting on with him at times in the early days, and I thought one punch should do it, but after that, I think he'll kill me. So, I decided that maybe talking away our stuff was better. So, but he was really good. Not just for me, but he actually he wheeled and dealed, got a lot of young lads who were very ambitious, wanted to do well, and there was a nice combination of they had a bit of experience, but a lot of young lads. We had a lad, we've only just been in touch, Alan Biley for Cambridge, who scored 30 goals a season. I think he went to Everton and then had a spell at Derby, didn't quite do it, but fantastic player. I could name them all. Steve Spriggs, and here's one for you. The ex-Arsenal goalkeeper Malcolm Webster. I got into the club. Malcolm was, I think he was shifting furniture down in Southend, Wickford, and Ron was looking for a goalkeeper. So I told Ron, I don't know how I heard about it. I think the fella who owned the furniture shop told me about Malcolm there. Wasn't fit, hadn't trained. I said to Ron, I said, this lad's a good goalkeeper for this level. He'll smash it. Got him up. First pre-season game, Bristol City at the Abbey. Soft header. Went through hands, went through legs, into the back of the net. Ron calls me to one side and he says, do you know anything about goalkeeping? Malcolm Webster became one of the best goalkeepers ever at Cambridge United. Fantastic. We won the 4th Division Championship because a lot of it was down to him. He was absolutely fantastic, as well as the other lads. So I had a great time, loved every minute of it, and I love Cambridge as a place.
So what position were you playing at the time when the questions just come in? Were you centre-back, converted to right-back, or the other way around?
Yeah, I could play anywhere along the back four. I was playing in midfield as well, but Ron came in, had a look. But one of his most important signings was Dave Stringer from Norwich, who formed a fantastic partnership with Duncan Forbes. And Dave Stringer came in as centre-back, and Ron moved me out to right-back. Ron always wanted to play, he did it at West Brom, play out from the back through the full-backs. So he moved me out to right full-back, and Dave Stringer was a fantastic professional. But we liked him as a guy because he had a small holding back in Norwich, and he used to come through with a lot of eggs, farm fresh eggs. It was fantastic. He only came through a couple of times a week and said, Dave, don't forget the eggs. It would take him twice as long because he had to drive very slowly with the eggs for the lads. But what a fantastic professional. And I think even though I was skipper, if I tried to be too clever, I could just feel his eyes on the back of my head, and I knew he preferred to kick it into row Z and start again, whereas a few of us were trying to play. But you just knew when it came to defending, you had to do it right because Dave was going to be on your case. So he moved me out to right full-back, and I stayed there ever since.
We're going to move on in a minute to West Brom, and Ron Atkinson took you there. But obviously, talking about Ron Atkinson, there's one thing that we got to kind of touch on. And when he was broadcasting, he famously used the N-word. What was your reaction to that, Brendan? Did you speak to him afterwards, or decide not to talk to him, or what?
I spoke to him. I was mortified. I had just come back from Grenada. I was watching that game. We had a stopover in Barbados. I was watching the first half of that match on the TV in Barbados. Landed. My friend kept my car, used to work for at the airports, kept my car, asked him the results. And then by the time I got back to the Midlands, I got a call from the press. I had a lot of press on saying, any comments on that? I said, well, I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, I had to go through to ITV. The press guy rang me back, told me about it, tried to speak to Ron, couldn't get him. But to be fair, he rang me back later. But by then I'd already made a statement to the press. And I was mortified. I just couldn't believe it. I just could not believe it. And in a way, it's a shame, really, because his legacy, really, in support of all the things as a manager, will be remembered for that one moment. But it's of his own making. We fell out, but we made up. Cyril and myself made an effort. Well, we were asked me. But in the end, I'm not one to hold grudges. We had a chat about it, and we're okay. But it'll never leave me the thought that if anybody had said to me, you would make that comment like that, I'd have said, no way. Well, in actual fact, we were playing, Ron had gone, we were playing Tranmere away. And I'm skipper, I'm in the dressing room, lads were a bit subdued. And Tranmere, at the time, the dressing rooms were quite small, so we're trying to do stretches. I was in the showers, really subdued, the dressing room. And then I heard a bit of excitement in the dressing room just before kickoff. And I thought, I bet Ron's come in. Went out, Ron's walked in the dressing room, give a little pep talk. And I knew we weren't going to lose that day. Alan Bailey scored his regulatory goal. We won 1-0. And I think we went top. I think there was a bit of a few games were fell because of the weather. But when Ron left the dressing room, he shouted out, say goodbye to the lads back, man, you've played your last game. And I thought he was taking the proverbial. And as it happens, because I think some of the games were cancelled, and it just transpired, he came in for me, and I think that was the last game I played for Cambridge, was Tranmere away. And they'd agreed a deal. The previous coach I was telling you about, Ray Freeman, having left the club, went into the wine business. Very nice wines, I must tell you. We were having a wine tasting at my house in Bar Hill, just outside of Cambridge. And the phone goes, it's John Doherty saying that just agreed a deal with Ron. I've had a few glasses of wine. I thought, he's winding me up. He said, no, he's going to ring you in about 10 minutes. He rang. He said, get yourself up here tomorrow. And that was it, really. They'd agreed a fee. I think it was 30,000. And I went up, and the deal was done. I think it was a Thursday, and the deal was done by the Friday. Yeah.
So were Cyril Regis and Laurie Cunningham already at West Brom then?
Yeah, Laurie was the first one to join. I think he joined under Johnny Giles. And Ronnie Allen signed Cyril from Hayes. The lad who Cambridge United was playing for Hayes called Bobby Ross for a time. Vic Akers was also at Cambridge United.
Oh, wow.
The most successful last year ever with Arsenal ladies. And Chopper Harris's brother, Alan Harris. And we were the four travellers. And it's Ronnie Allen who signed Cyril. I'd seen Cyril on the television, and I thought, this fellow should be a boxer, not a footballer. He looked huge, and bless him. Yes, when I went up there, I made up the trio, but a really good team. I joined a good team. I was very lucky. I say, at times, you've got to be fortunate, and it's all about timing. I think I was very fortunate when I joined a really good side.
Do you remember the proper 3 degrees coming to see the West Bromwich Albion 3 degrees, Brendan?
Yeah. Ron, being a shy, retiring person that he is, couldn't let an opportunity go by. They were I think it was called Talk of the Town in Birmingham. And we knew of them, but we weren't even aware that they were appearing. I think Ron just realised there's a bit of publicity to be had here, get West Brom on the map. And yeah, he just threw out the line. I mean, I couldn't tell you exactly how it came about, but I think somebody said to him, "Oh, the 3 degrees are appearing in Birmingham." He went, "Oh, forget them. We've got our own 3 degrees here," and it just stuck. Yeah, so I was the only one that was married. So I think there was probably a few too many publicity shots, 1 or 2 too many. But it was all harmless fun at the time, and didn't cause us a problem.
Out of your old clubs, do you look for a result first? Is it Cambridge, West Brom, or even Arsenal?
All 3. Actually, fact, my son's a Gooner. My son lives in Slovenia, and he's a long-suffering Gooner. He said, "Oh, crikey, you know." So I haven't spoken to him since the semi-final win, but he said he'd been long-suffering. But we've had some enjoyable times together, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed for Arteta. He looks,
yeah,
so he might be onto something at the moment. Yeah, it is a better time, but it's nice to see some young lads coming through as well. I've been told there's some good young lads, and we've seen it happening at Man United again, and also at Chelsea. And I think for you as fans, you like to see young lads coming through, and you know, you're one of our own. You know, we've got 1 or 2 at West Brom.
How do you think you'd get on in today's game then, Brendan?
Oh no,
with the players and the speed and everything.
Every player, every generation, the players who played, no matter what level, we could play in this generation as well. You know, you can't. When I first came to him, the first game I got taken to White Hart Lane, Tottenham versus West Ham. First night of Bobby Moore, but the one that made a real impression on me was Jimmy Greaves. Yeah. I mean, he just looked as though he glided across the ground, and he just seemed to stroke the ball into the back of the net. You know, Bobby Moore was getting dogs abuse from the fans. Start of the season, he was very bronzed, blonde hair. That was what we were told when we were leaving the Caribbean to come to England. He represented the archetypal English boy, blonde hair, blue eyes. And when they were all giving him abuse, I think somebody was injured, he raised his on his chest to say, "Look at me." what are you on about? I'm absolutely beautiful. Yeah, you always left an impression on me. And yeah, so it was great times. And I think great players of any generation would be able to play at this level. Yeah, in this generation, I should say. I got really involved, and it was a very exciting time because we were going through the throes of freedom of contract. And we'd gone to court in 1963, George Eastham, ex-Arsenal. That was the first shot at it. And then we went for freedom of contract, whereby even if the clubs offered you at least the most favourable terms that you were on previously, they couldn't offer you any worse terms. If you decided not to sign, you could join another club, and then it's up to the two clubs to agree a fee. You go to a tribunal. Whereas in the old days, you couldn't move unless the club said so. So it was really a form of bondage. So it was a really exciting time for me. I was 20, coming up to 21. And then same thing when I went to West Brom. John Wall was the delegate, skipper, and asked him if I could take over as well. So I went through that whole period of going through freedom of contract in 1978 with all the things that went with it. It was a great time. Derek Dugan was chairman, and he was a great voice for the PFA. Irish, so he couldn't shut him up. But he was brilliant. And we had regional meetings to talk about it. We were going to go on strike. The press were writing off the lower divisions. I was playing in the third division at the time. And I said, look, I'll take my chances. I just want to be able to be free. If I can't get a deal I want at the club I'm at, I want to be free to join another club and then let them argue about the fee afterwards. So it was a great time, and I thoroughly enjoyed every minute of being a delegate. But it's changed now. There's much more interaction between the union, the PFA, and the delegates. We've got delegate liaison officers now. The PFA has now got 60-odd employees, full-time employees. When I became delegate, I think it was Cliff Lloyd, a secretary, and that was it. And an education officer, yeah. And that was it, basically. No, everybody's got ambition, and everybody wants to be paid what they think they're worth. And you know, the seismic change in the game was obviously the onset of the Premier League. That's when there's always been incremental increases in salary. Those players at the top level deserve every penny they get, because you're only one challenge away from looking for a second career. The ambition of every player is to play in the top flight. And if you manage to get there, then you want to be paid accordingly. And it's only recently that football has really started to feature in the top 10 of top earning sportsmen. You know, I don't think we're in the top 5. I mean, Americans still corner everything in terms of the salaries they get. But they deserve every penny, because the fans and yourselves, you're the ones that go pay the money. But who do you watch? You watch the players. Yeah. TV, I think the Premier League is now shown in over 210 territories. Yeah. It is huge. And it's the most watched league in the world. We are going through change at the moment. I can't discuss it too much because there are different reviews are going on. But yes, you know, we know what's been going on in the press. There's a bit of an agenda with Gordon Taylor, but let me tell you, that guy has done the most fantastic job. He is, I would say, well, Richard Scudamore has stepped down now, but I mean, Richard Scudamore is a very good administrator, but Gordon is a fantastic administrator. Cliff Lloyd was. I mean, Cliff Lloyd did the deal in 1955. That's why we won the most powerful sporting associations, because the deal was done in 1955 that the PFA, well, players would receive, and the PFA would receive a share of the TV deal. But back in the day, in the handbook, every time a player was on TV, and I was one, we were entitled to receive £10.50 for being on television. But the players see almost like intellectual property. You know? But the players ceded the right to receive that individually to go to the PFA, so that they could develop, you know, whether it be education grants, whether it be accidents or benevolent, so everybody would benefit. And that is what's kept the PFA together. And that is why when we threatened to go on strike on a few occasions, the players from top to bottom backed the PFA because of the work that's been done from 1907. The game's about money and medals in that order. Not being cynical, but we are professional sportsmen. Professional sports people get paid for what they do. They bring a lot of pleasure to the spectators, and they should be paid accordingly. And that the PFA looks after everybody, not just the top players. Not only that, once you've been a member, you're a member for life.
Yeah.
You can maybe play 10 games, or you've never played in the first team. But once you signed, and as a scholar, and you sign that form to say you're a member, you're always a member, and you can come back to the PFA for support in later life. There's no question things have improved hugely from the time when I first came to England. I mean, I knew nothing about racism. Trinidad's a very cosmopolitan country. But coming to England, suddenly you're faced with a stark reality that people are going to call you. I mean, 9 years old at junior school, first day queuing up for lunch, and this lad calls me a chocolate drop. Well, I wasn't quite sure what he meant. But then when I saw, you can almost feel the atmosphere change around me and with my friends, and then you realise what it meant. I'm looking at some very young faces on this screen, but Robinson's Jam, the symbol was a gollywog. It was quite incredible. But that's what I try and explain to people coming into the game and getting all this abuse from the terraces. It wasn't anything new because we were getting it on a daily basis. And in a way, football has been very kind to me. I've been lucky. I keep saying I've been lucky. Football was quite kind to me because I got shielded from a lot of that. But on a day-to-day basis, people driving past in cars, young boys shouting out, "Go back to where you come from," calling you all the names under the sun. My brother was a spark. He did his apprenticeship. He showed me some of the stuff that goes on building sites. A lot of black lads, my friends that I knew, worked for Fords. Some of the stuff they had to put up with, all the name calling. If they reacted and broke the production line, instant sacking. Not anything to do with all the bullying aspect and the racism. So yes, things have improved, but change moves slowly. And when we see what's happened in America, I mean, when I saw that recording of George Floyd, I was absolutely horrified. I could not believe what I was seeing. And I think I went to one of the protests. You can't call it a protest. It was a gathering. It wasn't a march, but a protest in Birmingham, in the city centre. And the great thing, I mean, I'm very optimistic that this is an opportunity for significant change, because I've never seen so many black and white kids, young kids, together, all chanting the same thing. The placards, I got pictures. I got quite emotional. I was socially distancing, but the young kids didn't even bother. They were all together. You almost wanted to go and hug them, give them a hug, because I thought, here's an opportunity. I don't know if you saw one of the services for George Floyd. His name is Reverend Williams, 91 years old, was in a wheelchair. He spoke at the service. He walked with Martin Luther King, did the Selma to Montgomery March, 91 years old. And he said he's optimistic because back in the day, it was just black people marching. Now he said you've got black people, white people, Hispanic people, all across the world, all buying into that Black Lives Matter movement. So if at 91, with what he's seen with his own eyes, if he's optimistic, then I'm optimistic. And there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. One of the great things, I mean, it's a lovely sight seeing all the players taking a knee.
Feel about, do we need a kind of Rooney rule? Not Wayne, but the other Rooney, Rooney rule for coaches in the UK.
There was a sort of they don't like calling it a Rooney rule over here, but there's sort of an English version of it in the regulations in the EFL, but it isn't working. Behind the scenes, a lot going on. Paul Elliott, the ex Chelsea and Rangers, he chairs the IAB Inclusion and Advisory Board. Sits on council at the FA. People like Garth Crooks, myself, we work quite closely with him. The three of us have been doing stuff to try and encourage more coaches from an ethnic background. The FA have been very good. So Chris Powell was with Gareth Southgate for the seniors during the Bulgaria game. We proposed, is when Dan Ashworth did very well in agreeing to this. We made a proposal to Dan and Martin Glenn at the time, and the AMLA, to say we need to have black coaches, BAMI coaches, international squad. And so right away through from under 15s through to the seniors. So Michael Johnson's with the under 21s with Detroit. And we want to replicate that with the women. But for the men, you need to have at least the A license because you're dealing with elite players. The women are very much trailing behind the men's journey. We want to make sure that they don't fall foul of a lot of the stuff that the men had to put up with generation after generation. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes. And I think the current climate and the narrative that's around the lack of diversity and ethnicity within our game been up. So personally, I would like to see the FA as the guardians of the game make a significant appointment of a BAMI coach with the right qualifications, like a Chris Powell, because he's been a manager, international player, great career, got his pro license, all the qualifications you need. Very, very astute guy. He's got his toe in the water being with Gareth. So I think there is movement behind the scene. Now what we need to see is that visibility. That's what we want to see, the visibility. Because if you can't see it, you can't aspire to it. Each generation of black players have seen almost their parts. It's almost like a rite of passage. Being a good player, you go into management. So currently, you've got Frank Lampard. I mean, they all no criticism to them whatsoever. But Steven Gerrard, you've got John Terry waiting in the wings, maybe, but he's got a prominent role at Aston Villa. Go back to my time, Graham Souness, Brian Robson, nobody, and the press, the media have a part to play in this because the press promote who they think is going to be the next managers. The only black player I can remember being promoted was Paul Ince. And I think he had something to do with that himself. He's not shy, Paul. But yes, we do need to have more positive action. We know we can't have positive discrimination, but the Rooney Rule wouldn't work over here because they've got different laws in America. They can positively discriminate in America, which is illegal over here. But there's stuff in the background, and I hope that'll come to fruition. There's lots of jobs within the football club. You don't see many people like me in there.
No.
I think you can. If you're supporting a club and you're not happy with what you've seen in terms of diversity, I think you can let them know.
Well, ACER does campaign for that, for equality and diversity within Arsenal. We're always challenging Arsenal about things like pay, fair pay, and things like that. And we will put that. We will certainly be pushing that to the club. So yeah, definitely we will take that on.
I think you're looking for opportunity and an encouragement, and not only that. You need to see the actions being taken, the structures are put in place so that you can look to get an equal opportunity. Really, in society in general, commerce has a big part to play, obviously. We know commerce and Bedford, they've got to take more responsibility in terms of looking to be more diverse, more inclusive, and to see that progression, because every time you look and you see one of the big multinationals, whether it be a bank, whether it be a retailer, invariably it's white. Women are beginning to have more of an influence. But if you look at the FTSE 100, I couldn't tell you the numbers, but there's no representation there. We're so far behind America in terms of that, but we're not as bad as America. Because, as I say, with the BLM movement, the lies seem to be so cheap over there, and that's great, gain such traction. But I do think there has to be more of a focus on inclusion, diversity, and equality across the board. Football's not a silver bullet, but it's the industry I've worked in all my life. And if we can all look after the industry that we are working in and say, I think there's a chance you put it all together, you'll see significant change. We shouldn't not acknowledge the improvements that have been made. I've been here a long time now, in England, and I always feel that England is a second home. It's been very tolerant. It's been good to my family and myself, so I'll never knock it. But like everything else, we can always get better.